Hello and greetings from the skinny. Hello and greetings from the Cineskinny. Don't laugh, Anahit. I'm trying to promote another podcast, not our one. Our one is a knockabout bunch of japes in which we talk about films from the skinny's perspective. You know, kind of like looking outwards at what's going on in the world, but also looking inwards at what's going on in Scotland in particular. You know, we're fun like that. We're a cool bunch of lads. In other cool bunch of lads news, we've also started a music podcast. It's called Music Now, and the first episode is out now. We are talking in the first one to Malin Lewis, the piper, composer, performer, about their work, about some of the stuff they've got coming up later in the year, and some gigs that they're helping to programme at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh. It's a fun chat with our good friend and colleague Laurie Presswood. I recorded and produced it. There's none of the japes you'd get on here, I tell you. This is serious business. We're talking about music with musicians, whereas when we're talking about films with each other in a small cupboard, it's a lot easier to have a bit of fun with it. But it's still a fun chat, so you should listen. There's like a little clip coming up in a second from that first episode. If you've enjoyed it, you can subscribe to the Music Now podcast wherever you get your podcast, probably the same place that you're listening to this just now, to be honest. Anyway, this intro is getting away from me a bit. Here's Laurie talking to Malin Lewis. The Cineskinny will be back very shortly. Goodbye, bye.
So the second track off of your debut album, Halocline, which came out last year, called Trans, which I know you wrote quite a long time ago. I wondered if you could tell me a bit about the process in particular. Sort of what was the impetus for writing it? What was the headspace you were in when you wrote it?
So this was like 7.5 years ago. I was just making this new bagpipe, the Lindsay System Chanter,
which I realised we didn't say earlier. We should have probably said explicitly. Designed by the piper Donald
yes.
Lindsay.
So
originally 3D printed.
A lovely friend of mine 3D printed and designed a new type of bagpipe and then let me have a go at making it in wood. And then we've been working together on it since. And so it's a new instrument without a repertoire and a new layout. So it's like a blank canvas really as a sound and as an instrument. I'm also an 18-year-old who's exploring what it means to be trans in the world and about to kind of leave home, I guess, for the first time properly. I guess that was like the headspace I was in, spending many hours in a shed working on this new instrument. And it really came out of the process of like learning it. So like finding almost like a scale, like what notes feel right under it and what's like possible. All the whilst like with an instrument that's completely out of tune because it's like a work in progress. So like the way I'd make pipes is basically get like the chanter without any holes in it, just the hole down the middle, and then just drill like roughly, and then use a Dremel to like carve them bigger, and then use beeswax to like fill in the blanks. So like the first one's like covered in beeswax. It's this like movable entity. But I think I wrote it on that first ever one because it worked surprisingly well, and it was just like such a joy to have this this new creature, this new like muse animal bagpipe thing that you could create sounds on that I'd never thought to create before. So it really came out of like an improvisation, but kind of almost a technical one of like that. All the while, like all these thoughts in my head and all this like thoughts about the world and about identity and, you know, how to make instrumental music like welcoming and accessible to like either queer people or to anyone really.
It's such a joyous track, and it's interesting that you say it's like a technical exercise because it is quite like you really like making the use of those chromatics.
Yeah.
But it's just like such a, I think when I said earlier that it feels like you have these kind of like soaring moments like that specifically, I think about that, it feels like this might be a really weird comparison, but it feels like I imagine you could see like a sort of Beauty and the Beast style, like if your pipes were animated, that they'd be like giving a sort of like really fantastic rendition. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just I really love it. So what about I'm kind of interested in the lifespan of it as well, because obviously you wrote it on, I guess these are yours words, not mine, out of tune by. And I think it's quite different to how we might conceive of like the traditional music recording pipeline in like pop music, in that it was written 7.5 years ago, and you have presumably been performing it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know, is that something that you're conscious of? Do you think that that's shaped it? Has it changed over the years, or has it been quite like set?
The tunes kind of remain set, but I think the world that it represents changes. And so it's about, I think it's about how that's shared with an audience and how I feel playing it in different settings. And yeah, for me, it feels like something I will play forever. It's kind of like, it's one of the kind of few tunes that really, really feels like I love it. Like there's always things in different music where it's like, it's not quite perfect, or it doesn't quite hit. But like, to me, that tune is like a really personal thing, and a really something that means something to me and represents something, I guess. It represents a time in my life, but it represents like a political world that we live in. And, you know, I often think that like, had I learnt the oboe, I would be doing the same stuff with the oboe. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is kind of a tool to express myself, and I will shout for and share the things that I believe in whatever way I can, and that just so happens to be the bagpipes. And I'm really grateful for that. I think it's a beautiful niche, but like really special world. And obviously like super special to Scotland, and super, I think that's a big part of it as well, is like, you know, the bagpipes has baggage in a way. It has a history, and it has representation, and it has cliches, and kind of being able to break out of that and like reclaim that tradition. And I think you said earlier like about the pipes sounding like singing and things, and I've always been super inspired by like Raina Connolly and like Alan MacDonald as singers who play instruments as well, and the way that they, like the power in their voices, and the way that they can paint a melody and give it so many different colours. And like how to do that on an instrument that doesn't have dynamics, that you can't change the volume, and is hard to change the timbre of each note. So it's like thinking about all the different ways to do that. And
that is a much more beautiful way of what I kind of stumbled over earlier with my Beauty and the Beast metaphor. That's what I was trying to say.